Hey ladies, welcome to the podcast. How are we all going today?
Hello.
Good.
Hey.
Good, thank you.
So it's been a little bit of a hiatus since we've done a podcast for Champions Gym. So I thought, what an awesome opportunity to bring a few of our amazing mums together to celebrate Mother's Day. So before we get started, we'll start with Brie. Give us a bit of an intro about who you are, kind of like what you do, and a bit about your family.
Yep. I'm Brie. I am a jeweler by trade, and I run a wholesale pearl company at the moment. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I currently am boxing, obviously at Champions.
Awesome. All right, and let's go to Lynn.
My name's Lynn, obviously. I'm an accountant as a day job. I have one son, Kobe, who's just turned 4, and favourite thing about trading is just seeing everyone, I think, the community there. So, great team.
Let's go, Chantel.
And looking at the baby monitor. So, I'm Chantel. I have a little baby boy, 7 months old, and I am a cosmetic nurse by day, and by night I am trained at Champions, doing Muay Thai.
All right, so let's get into Bries Story. So, Brie, how did you even get into boxing?
I'd always kind of trained. I was sort of training at F45 and just doing a lot of that sort of mainstream stuff. I just was finding it boring. Just wanted to do something a bit different, something that not everybody else did. So I just signed up for the 28-day trial. I just thought, what have I got to lose? Just thought I'd mainly just do pad work and things like that, and more than anything, just for fitness. After doing that for a little while, one of the trainers said, we've got some grading coming up. Why don't you grade? And I've never had any intention of ever fighting ever or sparring. I said, yeah, why not? I'll push myself. I'll do the grading. And here we are.
Do you think you actually needed more of a challenge than like the F45 or the HIIT gyms?
100%. I just got really bored. I just found doing the same thing was super repetitive, quite boring. I just wasn't getting enough out of it. I've also found my fitness really plateaued quite a lot as well. So at first I sort of had got quite fit and stuff, but then, it just didn't matter how hard I worked. I just wasn't getting any fitter. So I just needed something. I wanted something that was going to challenge me and challenge me mentally, I think, more as well. Like, obviously, when you're going to an F45, you're just doing the same repetitive exercises over and over. So it was super boring. And, I just wanted something to kind of push me, I suppose, out of my comfort zone a little bit as well.
Yeah, and I personally know like how much you've achieved in the gym over the few years that you've been with us, but maybe share with everyone the baby steps about what you've achieved and some of the things you've ticked off your list.
So as I said, when I first started at Champions, I had no intention of ever getting in the ring, no real intention of ever sparring. It just literally for me was just more about getting fit and trying something new. Until I said, some of the coaches said, why don't you grade? And I'm quite competitive. So when they said, why don't you do this grading? I was, why not? Everyone else is doing it. I'll do it. Then I sort of said, I'll grade, but I don't really want to spar or anything. And then, they sort of got me sparring. I went from sparring to, they were like, we've got these interclubs. Why don't you go out and spar other people? So started doing interclubs. Then obviously hit outs and, then did some of the masters stuff as well. So there's been quite a few like masters programs. So it just kind of went from there. And now, I'm hopefully going to get in the ring in a couple of weeks for my first fight in the masters game. So it's been.
And that's a lot of, not just mums, but a lot of people, like most people, I would say, might hold off from taking challenges. They might get a bit nervous. What tips do you have for these people that are dealing with fear?
I tried not to think about it too much. I suppose, like, if you really dwell on it, I find if I really think about it and dwell on it, then it sort of panics you. But just try and think about all the positive things that I'm getting out of it, as opposed to what could happen. And I suppose the worst case scenario is you get punched in the head a few times, and after you've got hit in the head a few times, you realise it's not that bad. Like, it's not the worst thing that could happen, I suppose. And you get so much more out of it than what the fear is, I guess.
Yeah, so you've done, say, your sparring day. How do you feel after? Like, what are those initial emotions?
You feel, before you get in, you feel like you're going to vomit, obviously. Like, that nerves and the adrenaline that's rushing through is insane. But then you get in there, and once you sort of settle and start breathing properly again, there's no other high like it when you get out of the ring and you've pushed yourself to your extreme and you've given it everything you have, and you sort of put all of those skills that you've been working on for months and years to use. And it's a massive high. It's such a high. You just feel really proud of yourself, even if you don't win. Obviously, you're not going to win every time. You'd like to, but you feel so good about yourself after.
That's so good. And like, last question is, who was Brie before boxing and who is she now?
Brie before boxing probably wasn't as confident. Definitely boxing's given me a lot more confidence. Made me try things, like made me really step out of my comfort zone a lot more. I was definitely someone that took the safe option, definitely sort of always, just kept things fairly simple. But yeah, definitely since I've started boxing, I've got a lot more confidence, and I try new things that I wouldn't have tried before, and I definitely push myself a lot harder than I probably would have pushed myself before as well.
Yeah. And how do you even make this all happen? Like, what is your normal day?
It's a long day. So usually get up around sort of between 5:30. Poor old Mace gets dragged down, not so much anymore, but usually I get up at 5:30, get dressed, go to the gym usually at 6. I usually do a sack class and a boxing class. Shoot home, have a shower, get Macy, scream at Macy to get organised, chuck her in the car, drop her to school, drive to work, do whatever day of work, pick Macy up from whatever various activity. Then try, if I can, get to an evening session. I don't as often as I would like, because obviously it's not as much time as I would like. But yeah, then obviously helping Macy with homework, cooking dinner, feeding pets, doing washing, bed, and then repeat the next day.
Wow.
So it's a busy day.
Incredible. Well done. Well, thank you so much, Brie. Thank you so much. It's amazing.
No worries.
Right, so over to Lynn. She's one of our Muay Thai mums at Highgate. How did you get into Muay Thai?
So for me, it was always a little bit different. So a bit of background story. I fell pregnant, obviously, 5 years ago now. I just came out of an incredibly toxic relationship. It was like 4 or 5 years on and off. And then when I finally got out of it, the next day I went to the doctor's routine checkup, and I had some pains in my stomach, and they're like, let's do a pregnancy test. And there I was, finding out that I was 4.5 months pregnant. So it was all like a bit of a whirlwind, like rush. Didn't have much time to prepare for it. And we tried to make it work, but obviously at 4 months, Dad up and left, and that was that. So the next 5 or 6 months after that, I would just spiraled into this really dark, I guess, space. And I just remember this one night, it's kind of dramatic, but like I was looking at my son was looking at me, and it was kind of like, look, I got to do something about this, otherwise I'm going to end up, I don't know where, and he's going to end up with God knows who. So I made small efforts to just get myself better, get out of bed, go for showers, that kind of thing. And it was really tough because, like, obviously when your son or your kid is like 8-9 months, those are like the best times that you spend with them, and I don't actually remember a lot of that. But anyway, so I always wanted to do a combat sport, and logged on Google, and Champions Gyms was literally the first thing that came up. 28-day program, and the rest is history. Like 3.5 years later, I'm still here, still going strong. Had a lot of ups and downs, but look, it definitely helped me physically and definitely just mentally. So yeah.
I think like a lot of mums can relate to that postpartum journey. Like you go through this like identity change, you're dealing with like the hormones, and like I thought I was a pretty tough person before, and then you have a baby, and it I think it's not something that's talked about enough. But how I suppose did Muay Thai help you through that?
Look, it's definitely all about the mental resilience, I think, for me. Like, I remember the first couple of classes I did, they were all your classes with. I remember doing a boxing class, and that was like the hardest thing ever. My fitness was so bad. During my pregnancy, I already gained like 30 kilos, and then when the baby came out, I was still 20 kilos like over like my norm, and I'm still struggling with that. But like, I think just being active again and just slowly seeing, you know, getting fitter, the weight coming off was really helpful. But more so than anything, I think just to add a layer to everything that's going on, like with my personal life and with my son and everything, he's always like developmentally struggled. So everything that we find really easy, sort of like walking, eating, swallowing, talking, he's always struggled with. So on top of everything, we're in sort of therapy 4 to 6 hours a week. And on top of that, like I'm always kind of advocating for him and fighting, you know, with doctors and therapists and peds and, you know, funding and the school system. And it's a lot. Like it's really hard, I think, on anyone mentally. And so for me, where champions and like Muay Thai comes into it, it's sort of like, at the end of the day, like the hardest thing for me is, you know, I don't have anyone to go home to and then debrief and like bounce ideas off. And, you know, just knowing that what I'm doing and what I'm deciding for my son is like 100% right. Like I'm never going to do anything intentionally wrong by him. But like at the end of the day, I don't know if every decision I've made is the correct one. So for me, I think having all those emotions and like feelings bottled up, going to the gym, just letting it all out, that's my release for the week. So there's a bit of a running joke that I go too hard sometimes at the gym, but for me, like the main thing is sort of I need to let it out. You know? Like the best sessions I have is sort of like when you have a good round of pads, you know, you hear the nice crack on the pads, you do your extras, and you're like on the floor in a pile of sweat at the end of the session, and you just leave it all on the mat. Like I reckon that feeling is honestly better than sex. It's like better than anything in the world. That serotonin release is like guaranteed, and I can go home happy. Like, and that's the feeling I'm always sort of chasing, and I think that's why it's so important to me. If that makes sense.
I think you don't have to be a mum for 5 minutes as well. Like I think you get to just be you, and you're not someone's mum. And 100%.
Well, that's it. Like I kind of feel.
I think also like you're going to be the best mum when you fill your own cup up.
Yeah.
And I think that's what so many mums don't realise is like there's always going to be a million things to do at home. Washing, cleaning, fucking food prep. But if you give yourself an hour, you're going to go home and be like the best mum for your son.
Well, that's exactly it. So, and it's like, I don't think people really realise, because I don't really talk about my story that often, but it's just helped me tremendously, just as an individual, but also as a mum. So it's the best.
Again, like I know what you've achieved in the gym and some of the amazing things that you've done and the challenges that you've actually smashed. Are these things that you ever thought you would do before becoming a mum? Like you would ever do a sparring day or like go to another gym and, you know, compete with another lady?
No, well, that's it. Like definitely not. Like anyone that knew me sort of like prior to starting the gym knew like I was never really into fitness. Like I was all about having fun. And now that I'm sort of like, I'm a little bit more determined, and I'm, you know, just willing to give it a go and going to sparring days. And it's only sort of like now this year that, you know, the talk about potentially doing a fight is becoming real. And that's something that, you know, I'd never ever considered doing. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, Chantel, we're ready. 8-month-old baby. What has been some of...
Nearly.
Yeah.
4 days. 4 days is 8 months. Yeah.
What have been some of the biggest challenges returning back to the gym?
I think for me, definitely, obviously, I ended up having an emergency C-section, which I, number one, mentally was not prepared for that at all. And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, like when it happened, because I thought, I'll just be fine. I'll just go back to training 2 weeks later.
I remember.
So obviously that didn't really happen. So that was the first thing that was really, really difficult for me mentally, and obviously physically. You don't realize how much of a large operation it is until it happens. And then second is the exhaustion. I thought I was prepared, and I definitely wasn't. I thought, how hard can it be? Like, it must be like having a new puppy. It's not. Like it's definitely not. So I think like number one, yeah, it was just like mentally, physically, actually trying to be so exhausted and turn up to training. So that's why I think you have to be mentally strong in that area. Those are my biggest challenges, and also the after effects of what comes with pregnancy. Like I had no idea that I was anemic for months. I thought I was just severely exhausted, and I just couldn't work out why.
So I know that you
Yeah, so I
actually
did it.
trained your whole pregnancy. Like you were that person that were like, we're going to have to keep you out of the gym. You need to stop trying to spar everyone. Do you think it actually helped?
Whenever,
Like, do you actually think it
whenever I look
helped
at that
the?
video,
Yeah.
whenever I look at that video of me hitting pads with Brian, like literally like 2 days before I gave birth, I was like, that is not, that's next level.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy now that I did it. I was that crazy girl that everyone looked
I
at
used to
in the
say
gym
to you,
like,
why
what
are
the
you still
hell
here?
is she
What are you
doing
doing
here?
here? I was scared you're going to give birth on the mats.
Yeah, I know. I used to be like, okay, if my waters break, everybody call the ambulance.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But I
if you were to like, because I feel for me, like after I gave birth, like I feel like you need to be your fittest because it's a hard job. So I get really upset when people don't train, they kind of stop. Like, what would be your advice to the women that, you know, they're training, they fall pregnant? Did you change things? Did you kind of like just make it a promise to yourself? What was it?
For me, obviously, like my passion in life since obviously being quite young has been boxing and then Muay Thai. So for me, it's such a big part of my life. So when I became pregnant, I knew that it was a non-negotiable for me that I was not going to give that up because to me that's my happiness. Like, you know, that's what gives me joy every single day. I look forward to going to the gym and same thing, getting that serotonin high and upskilling, you know, constantly. It's something that you can never, you know, I feel like be the best at your game because there's just so many things you can learn. So I feel like just I would never stop, and I knew that my body would tell me when there was things that I couldn't do, and it did. Obviously, there was things that I kind of had to pull back on, but yeah, I just kept going.
That's so good. And after, did you give yourself how many weeks until you got back into it? What was kind of like the journey there?
Oh God. Obviously, like straight away, I was like, oh my God, there's absolutely no way I'm waiting 6 weeks. No one can tell me that. It's not going to happen. I'm crazy. So I started initially, obviously, doing like deep core stuff because I knew obviously I had two large cuts. So I did that. And then at week three, I could barely walk for 2 weeks. And then at week three, I went back to the gym and I just started anything that was like static, that I didn't have too much movement. And I sort of just built it up from there. At about week five, I was doing like shadow boxing and started hitting some light boxing pads and then tried to come back at about 6 weeks. But I don't think I think my first sparring session was with you, Lynn.
Yeah.
Remember that day I died? I think that was about 7 weeks later. And yeah, I've just tried to build it back from there.
And what's your ultimate goal? Like, what's next for Chantel?
Hopefully I will be fighting in June. So just see how that goes if I get a match and hopefully I make weight.
I'm sure.
I've got to stop eating, got to stop eating.
Awesome. All right. So, Dina, how did you get into Muay Thai? Was it before or after becoming a mama?
I did Muay Thai for about 6 years before I even had kids or thought about having kids. And my ultimate goal when I first started was like, give it everything you've got. You've got no kids. Well, I didn't really have a job either, but I was like, just do whatever I can for training and see how far you can get. Because I never really saw Muay Thai as like, I'm not like Chantel. Like I was never gonna be it like the rest of my life. I thought I was like, oh, I'll just give it a go. Like I'm young, I can fight, and then I can have kids, and that can be my next life. So I trained for 5 years. I had 15 fights, like 7 professional. I fought in Thailand, Perth, Brisbane, and had a really good time. Like I just did everything I wanted to do in Muay Thai. Felt at the time when I finished and had my last fight, I was like, done. I've done what I wanted to do in Muay Thai. I can move on. I can be a mom now. Like I've always wanted to have kids. And yeah, that's how it all started. I just kind of did it for fitness, and then my competitive nature took over, and then I ended up having 15 fights. So it all happened really fast.
All right. And then I know that you've obviously kind of gotten back into training more seriously now. Was there like a mindset shift in training? Was it less about being competitive? Was it more about like mental health or fitness? Like how did Muay Thai change for you?
Yeah, so like I didn't even do Muay Thai when I was pregnant or anything. Like after my last fight, I was like out of there. I was just like, I can't do this. It's like too intense for me. I'm just going to go to a normal gym or do something. And then, you know, after I had kids, same thing. Like as soon as the baby, so I've got 2 daughters. I've got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And after the firstborn, I remember I called my coach at the time, and I was like, hey, can I just come in and hit pads? Because like I don't know what to do fitness wise. Like I can't motivate myself in the gym, but I know if someone holds pads for me, like they can push me that way. And I did it, but I just struggled with the timing of everything because my husband does shift work. So I was like, I can't make these classes. I felt weird, like just calling, like, is anyone at the gym? So I was like, you know what, I'll just stick to the gym. I signed up at like one of those gyms that has a creche, and I just did that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until after my second daughter was born that I was like, there's still something missing. I was like, this is everything I've wanted. I've got these kids, they're beautiful, but there's just something else. And I was like, the only thing I could think of was Muay Thai. I was like, surely. So that's when I called, I messaged Wit, and I was like, hey, I know you've got this like gym and I'm in town. I was living in Carnarvon at the time, and I was like, can I just like do a class? And the last gym I was at was more like, I just felt like it was a fighter gym, you know, like everyone I trained with was training for a fight, hoping to have a fight. And I was like, that's not me anymore. I just want to come in and have a good time and hit pads. So I gave Wit a call, came in, and like, you can ask my husband, I came back and I was like, I think I'm just going to do Muay Thai again. Like, I have to go to this gym. Champions, like, you go in there, everyone's so welcoming. I felt like I didn't have to be that fighter girl anymore. I could just go in there, get my fitness, hit some pads, and feel really good afterwards. Just like Lynn said, I left it, I was like, this is the best day ever. I still have to do all that mom stuff, but like, now I feel good and I can do that stuff as well. So it just, it just shifted for me.
Why do you think so many mums just give up on that aspect of their life, that health and fitness aspect?
I think there is something inside of you. Like, I know for me, I was like, oh, I've done that. Like, I've been that young girl, fit girl. I did the runs. I like put my training in front of everything else. And then when you become a mom, you almost think like, no, this is my life now. I am a mom. I have to take care of these kids. I have to make sure people are fed. You know, it's not all about me anymore. And then you get into this like routine, and then you still have to do all these things, but then it just is that one thing that's missing, and you think, what's happening? Like, why am I not enjoying this as much as I thought I would? Or this isn't what I like thought motherhood would be. But it comes down to like, you're still a person before you're a mom, and if you're not getting that bit of extra stuff, you know, like filling your cup before someone else's, it makes your job as a mom that much harder, I think. And if that's fitness for you or whatever it is, you're like extracurricular, I think you really have to take into consideration how important that is in your own life to then be a mom as well.
And I know like every mom has different support networks and circumstances and budgets and things like that, but I find, obviously you're a coach like me, sometimes we think if we can't do what we did, we shouldn't do it at all. Like, what tips would you give to mums that are doing nothing, and how can they get back into moving?
Yeah, that was a big one for me. Like, I told everyone that's known me before I was a mom was like, oh, like, you're doing Muay Thai again, like, you're gonna fight, all this stuff. And at first I was like, well, no, like, I just want to go in and like get fit again, or just feel good about myself physically. And I had put this like training on such a pedestal where I was like, if I'm not gonna go in there and give it 100% every time, then what's the point? I said that so many times, like, what's the point? I'll just like go to the gym and lift a few weights, or like go get a boxing, you know, bag or whatever. And I think that was like the wrong way to look at it, because one session for yourself can start turning a clock inside of you that it's like, oh, I already feel this much better from that one session. What if I did 2? And then you do 2 sessions and it's like doable and you feel good and you're still doing all the other stuff that you're supposed to do as a mom, or that like I think you're supposed to be doing, and then you just feel that much better. So it's like the little steps, and I think that's where I had to take a step back and just do it. Like, just do 1 class, just do 2 classes. And of course now I've got like my competitive nature back, and I'm just like, should I fight again? I'm like, it's all coming around again. But my kids are 6 and 3. Like, I didn't come back into Muay Thai until, 7 years later. And now I'm still feel like it was yesterday that I was training 6 days a week for something. So it was a slow build back to Muay Thai for me. But since doing it the past 6 months, it's honestly, I feel like I'm 24 again, just like hanging out in the gym, and then I come home and I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta feed the kids too.
Oh my god, people have no idea how much work goes into just getting to the gym. Mum of 2 girls, is martial arts something that you would ever want your girls to do, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up, my parents always made us do a form of martial arts. Like, that was like a have to. Like, I was a gymnast growing up, and I was like, I'm not skipping gymnastics to do like karate. Like, that's ridiculous. And then I look back now and I'm like, that was the best thing for me, because martial arts is what built my confidence, my discipline, and just like my self-worth as like my own person. Whereas like, I'm sure you can get that from other sports, but having someone that's leading a group, learning to protect yourself, and just having the confidence to know that you can stand up for yourself is so important, I think. Even if you're not going to become competitive, I think all children should, at one stage, just try it, just so they can see what their body is capable of. My 6-year-old actually does judo.
Oh my god.
And she, at first, was so scared to start, because judo is like, they're flipping people and they're like doing holds, but she's built she's built for judo. And I didn't want to tell her that, but I was like, you have to do judo. You're going to go to the Olympics. But she's like loving it now, because she just realizes what she can do. Like, she gets on the mat and she's really vocal about it. She's like, I'm really nervous. I don't want that person to be my partner. Like, what if they flip me? And then I just say, listen to your coach. They're not going to put you in a situation where you're going to get hurt. And she does, and now she's like looking forward to it. She comes home and tells us like what the new move is that she's learning, and it's just good to see her self-confidence in a sport that is not, the run-of-the-mill, like a footy or some team sport that you're gonna do anyways as in an adolescent. So she gets to do something and feel confident about herself, and if she gets pushed around, I'm confident that she can handle herself as well. So
oh, that's so beautiful. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for jumping on tonight. I think you all have such amazing individual stories, but together, when we come together and spar, it's just such a beautiful community that there's no animosity when we punch each other in the heads. And I suppose like there's a lot of women that might be...
We'd like rather be punched in the face sometimes than cook our dinners.
rock up to work with a black eye, but like you definitely don't need to compete to get the benefits of like boxing and Muay Thai. Like, I know that you guys are all kind of heading towards that way. You get all the benefits from just turning up and doing like a general class. But yeah, this will be launched on Mother's Day, so
Exciting.
yeah, I'm excited. Thank you so much, ladies.
Amazing.